Now, and hundreds of thousands of people are protesting in the Czech capital against Prime Minister Andreje Babiše in what is being called the biggest demonstration in Prague since the Velvet Revolution that brought the end of communism. Here is Mariam Namazi in London with more.
Thanks very much, Kamal. Yes, incredible scenes we've been seeing in Prague of really mass protests calling for the Czech Prime Minister to step down over allegations of fraud. Protests against Andreje Babiše have been ongoing since April, with nearly 500,000 people signing a petition demanding he resign. Babiše is facing a criminal investigation for allegedly misusing European Union subsidies worth millions of euros. The businessman turned populist politician denies the charges and is refusing to step down. Well, Davidem Ondráčka is the director of the Transparency International organization in the Czech Republic and joins us live from Prague via Skype. So these protests have been described as the biggest since the fall of communism. I know that you were spending some time in amongst the crowds. What can you tell us about who was out on the streets today and why they were there?
Hi, thank you for having me. Well, it was really like biggest rally since '89, since the end of communism, so-called Velvet Revolution. It was very peaceful, great mood, but the message was very clear. People are fed up with political corruption of our Prime Minister Babiše. They demand his resignation, and they really want to keep a democratic institution, rule of law, and multi-party system in place. And they believe that current oligarchic prime minister is really a danger to this establishment. And it was also kind of a wake-up call for opposition, because what we are facing now is a kind of Berlusconi type of politicians. The biggest oligarch in the country, second richest person in the country, who is owning media, and at the same time he's on the top of political pyramid, controlling large parts of the government, and he's milking the state.
And so in that case, can I ask you, you were saying about the country's institutions. We know that Babiše is under investigation for alleged abuse of EU subsidies. Are the country's institutions, like the judiciary, strong enough to carry out a free and fair investigation?
We hope so. We believe that our institutions remain strong and we keep rule of law. We have a strong judiciary, prosecutors, police. But unfortunately, what Babiše is doing is he's trying to capture them, to put very loyal people to important positions. And people are simply afraid that investigations of his own economic crimes, either previous ones or current ones, can be endangered, and he can escape with immunity. And I believe that's what we want to avoid, and that was one of the key messages which brought people to the streets.
And can I also ask you about some of the other investigations going on, because separately Babiše is being investigated by the EU for a conflict of interest there. Now, what do you make of the way Brussels has handled this?
Well, that was the case that my organization, Transparency International, as a watchdog, actually brought to light. We tried to highlight the enormous conflict of interest that he is having, that his own business empire is biggest recipient of EU money. So we brought official complaint to Brussels, to European Commission, basically saying that he is in such a conflict of interest that his companies should not be entitled to receive public funds and EU funds. And Commission actually agreed with us. They stopped now paying the subsidies, and they should issue the final verdict which brings him into very difficult dilemma positions, either to endanger his own business, which he very much wants to protect, or to step down as a prime minister. And I believe these public protests actually help mounting this pressure on this oligarch. And the message is very clear. We don't want to keep one guy actually running the whole show. We are a European country with democratic tradition, and we want to keep it so.
Well, thank you for sharing your views with us today. Davidem Ondráčka, their Director of Transparency International in